Kyle here from All Media Reviews. I don't know if you can hear this, but from the Phoenix history. I forgot about that. I attempted 2 videos. So yeah, that was what I started with 10 years ago. It was a Tuesday, probably Tuesday night. And I don't need no echoes. But happy 10-year anniversary. 10 years of this. 622 videos. Yeah, here's the record. Animals. Great record. So, all right, I did the stream, of course, last week. That wasn't the official anniversary because I had a free evening. And I don't know if I can include everything, but, you know, if you find the stream after the fact, it's like a podcast or whatever. I don't know if I can include everything, but my apologies, or my thank you for doing that anyway. Oh, yeah, okay, we do have one friend in here. Christian. Thank you, Christian. So, what was I going to do? I could leave. I could, start off by going over the rest of the list. Actually, what I kind of wanted to do was just tell the origins a little more. You know, I feel like I've told this story ad nauseum, but so the deal is, okay, going back before even the blog, I had a journal. I did radio going back when I was in college, trying to find my outlet, and I wanted to go into sports. My first love was always sports. It wasn't music, even though I like pop music, but I became bigger into music, and that was kind of it. And then I discovered, after doing an internship at KFAN Radio back in 1996, that radio business, yeah, that's not an easy nut to crack. And you got to basically kiss everyone's ass. You start in small towns, you don't make a lot of money. So I just said, no, I'm just going to work and pay my bills and go to concerts and whatever. So then I discovered KFAI Radio, which was in 1999, which was like, way after I probably should have known about it. It's community volunteer radio. You don't get paid, but you get to do it. Though that had a lot of challenges in and of itself. It wasn't as easy doing radio. I'd done radio in college when I was the one semester I was at college in River Falls at WRFW. But I did that for a while. But it wasn't really meant to be. After I actually filled in for this one show, because the whole goal at KFAI was to get your own show, weekly show, and it was going to be midnight, and I was a night owl anyway, so it wasn't that weird. I worked like a second shift, but I applied for show after show after show. I filled in for many people. People like what I did for the most part. And then I filled in for this one show after many other applications that didn't get accepted. They chose someone else for like 2 months straight. And I applied because they were giving up their show because it was a couple, and the couple had a new baby and they couldn't do the radio show anymore. They were endorsing me. The former program director endorsed me, but they have a program committee that decided this stuff, and they still didn't pick me. So I kind of felt like it wasn't meant to be. I got a gig where I was once a month on this one show on Friday nights, but then I end up, unfortunately, playing a song on the radio that was not really kosher, and I end up having to take a break for like at least a year, and I decided to leave KFAI and just stop doing it, and then started doing the journaling and the blogging. I eventually did go back to KFAI, which was after this, the blog was long started in late 2006, but that's where I ended up meeting my wife. To the credit of KFAI. There were more circumstances. I wanted to actually make podcasts, or the Psych TV show podcast at KFAI. That was one reason why, and they had really nice studios. And it was close to my work. When I had left KFAI, I wasn't working where I was. I'm actually going to be at 20 years at the company I'm at this coming September. But anyway, that's the bio part. The blog started in 2006, and so what happened was that was right around the time YouTube actually launched too. But YouTube was like, people are uploading like trailers for movies and, home videos of like, America's Funniest Home Videos, America's Funniest Home Pets, that kind of stuff. The Star Wars saber guy, that kind of stuff is up there. I really had no interest in doing YouTube to think I needed to go on camera. I was trying to do podcast. I was doing podcasting. I started my podcast right around the same time with my friend John for Psych, and so I was trying to do podcasts for music too. But yeah, and I even bought. I can show this later, but so the blog started to sort of catch on a little bit to some degrees, but YouTube kept on growing, and the activity. This is even before social media. Then when social media came around, for all the time, YouTube seemed to escalate. Within a year or two, of course, YouTube, like Spotify launched, and then YouTube ended up merging with Google. So that was kind of it. And it's like everything was showing up on YouTube. There was other sites like Daily Motion, live video. I remember William Shatner did live video, and there were other video channels, and of course Vimeo. Yeah, this is the camcorder but I ended up buying this. So I got to the point where I was like, all right, I'll try YouTube. I'm still writing in the blog regardless. So I bought this thing. I don't remember how much I paid for it. It's a Sony. I mean, it's probably in need of upgrade, but it still works. And I just was, as I mentioned in the other stream last week, I was just doing it to show my records, really, and like record store day stuff. And did I get any fun promos from the radio? Yes, I did. A few. Some of the CDs I own because we gotta like keep them. But yeah, because that was part of what I did volunteering at the radio, both originally and then when I came back, we would get dozens of CDs every week or two at the radio station. People were sending from small labels, and a lot of that stuff couldn't fit in their library. We organized the library and it couldn't fit in there. So what happened? We got to take some of it home. And they just would give us stuff. So yeah, like I got a promo from them. The Kansas album, Somewhere to Elsewhere, I think I ended up getting. There's some others, but anyway. So then, yeah, 2014, it was like, I'll try YouTube, but watching subscriber numbers, and I didn't know any. I mean, I was watching other channels that I went over, but then suddenly, of course, it's like, well, I should try doing more YouTube. And I mean, it was really around the time of COVID that I just kind of gave up on. It's like, I'm sick of this. I got to 1 million hits on my blog. That was a goal, and so that tells you something. 1 million hits over a period of about 11 and a half years. And so I was like, well, let's try doing more YouTube. And a lot of people are doing YouTube, including like Sea of Tranquility and everything like that. But it hasn't been to the same maybe reach that even the blog found at this point. But still doing it. So 10 years later. So, all right, going back, that's kind of the gist of it. I mean, going back, I'll just start going where I left off onto the list. So there was a channel called Max Yoda, which was this young kid that some of the people like Downfall and I don't know if it's Christian McGuire. They definitely like to reference him. I don't know how the kid's not old anymore. He's not as young as he was back then, but he did videos of like the top Rush albums. I remember, and they were giving him. It was funny. It was funny to watch him. The next one on the list, it's a one I still watch periodically, is a guy named Swoozie, who does these animated videos of like his experiences with women, with customers when he worked at Disneyland, with it's very, very original take. It was Watch Mojo did their like top YouTubers, and it was like number 2, and he already had almost 1 million subscribers when he was on that list, and this was like almost 10 years ago. But Swoozie's cool. He got to interview Obama and everything like that, and there were periods of time where he doesn't do a video, and I'm sure the animation takes a lot of work. He probably has someone help, but he voiceovers and like an animated like guy, and I don't know, it's like different experiences with social situations with women. He's a professional video game player, I guess, too. And he's moved like 3 times. His place where he has shot live action looks like it's a hotel room. I don't know if it's his apartment or whatever, but Swoozie's cool. I still like watching. Whenever his videos pop up, my wife and I watch them. Even my wife is kind of soured on some of his videos. It's like a channel called The Music Zone, which I think that's a record store in, I want to say Ireland or maybe Scotland, somewhere in Europe. But they would do like new releases for a while there. They were almost every week they would show vinyl that would come out. So I would always watch them to see if they would show stuff that came out, even if stuff that wouldn't be coming out necessarily in America. But I still watch them occasionally, but I don't remember the last time I saw one of the videos. It was probably a year ago. The next one on the list is someone by the name of FoxyPancakes. This woman, her channel isn't actually in existence. I think the channel got deleted, but She's on Instagram though, but she hasn't used her Instagram in many years too. This is like blonde metal chick, and she talked about all kinds of metal. I wrote about her on the blog actually. She was great. I miss her. I would like to see what she's up to now, but it was like one of the first women that I encountered on YouTube that was a metalhead. So let's see here. I'm gonna move this over. Oh, now we have Scott from the Prog Corner. Hi, Scott. How's it going? Thank you for the shout out. This is a long list. I don't know if maybe I shouldn't go over the whole list because I have other lists also to go over. So like moving on, let's see here. That drummer guy, Heavy DeBriefings, a personal friend of mine, someone I know long before YouTube, is Josh Runquist, who his reviews, his interviews especially, got referenced on Blabbermouth like well over 50 times. He finally hit 1,000 subscribers like I think it was last summer or last fall. But he, like me, kind of just does his own thing. He likes tons and tons of obscure music, specifically metal. But he's been doing that drummer guy longer than almost as long as my blog. And I mean, he talks about his prog. He likes his prog metal, but his focus still is on metal. But I mean, I saw him. I met him many times at shows. He was actually a groomsman at my wedding. So yeah, he's one of the channels that I still watch. I still appreciate. I love his podcast with him and the Metal Fairy every week. They go over their lists and everything like that. So he's a favorite of mine. Okay, going on. Here's one of my favorites that I would love to see more content from, but he's probably long gone. It's a guy named Superior Reviews or SuperiorIsotope. That community that I connected with, Downfall, Christian McGuire, I think Mr. and Music was kind of in there. This dude, he was known as Mr. Superior, and he would have these meltdowns about his music taste. Like he was talking about Aerosmith once, how Aerosmith was the biggest case of a fake band where they kept on changing their styles. It was absolutely laugh out loud hilarious. I was in tears. And he would comment on my videos frequently, like, you need to listen to Mr. Superior. But he was great. I mean, he's this guy from New Jersey. I think he was a guitarist. He would his opinions criticizing like musicians was just hilarious. It was worth the price of admission. He never really caught on to the larger masses. I don't know if he did collaborations with Downfall, but that was it. I would love to see him do more stuff. So along those same lines, Insignia Reviews, he was in that same community. I'm blanking. I wrote about him in the blog, but I'm blanking on what I know. He knew Downfall. He knew Christian McGuire. He knew that community. And he did some of the they did like a Fates Warning special, a Dream Theater special. They did streams. But yeah, Insignia was great. So next, I got to definitely give a shout out to the Prog Report. They were obviously a podcast. The guy or the Prog Report account was actually on the Mike Portnoy forum. I don't know if you remember that, Christian. Yeah, of course, the name was sort of derived from the Colbert Report. Ironically, I knew Colbert, but I didn't watch the Colbert Report. But and it was just a blog just like mine. And then he started doing podcasts and interviews. He was interviewing a lot of the same people that Josh, that drummer guy, was. It was interesting. One would have the interview, and the next day the person would be on the others. But yeah, I mean, the Prog Reports persevered. They've grown a lot. They're sort of the go-to for prog, a lot of prog stuff. Although they love their Spock's Beard and their Inside Out music almost more. But it's interesting. I remember he interviewed the drummer from Def Leppard once. Yeah. What was it? Progressive? Yeah, it started right. Yeah, it was right around 2014. It was right around this time when the channel was launched. So I don't know how to. Did you just click on this and it highlights the comment? This is the first time I've done a live stream like this. So, but Roy started it. Yeah, it was right around that time. And so the Prog Report was sort of a good source for interviews. They did a Deer Hunter special even. I remember they had Jordan Blum on there. So I feel like the Prog Report. He's pretty close to my age, Roy. He's like a year too older. And his sort of generational taste is similar in some ways. He's an Enchant fan. He grew up, he was getting into prog a lot in the 90s like me. So he said, I feel like I'm a contemporary of his, like some other people, but specifically, he was less of a prog person in the 70s and more of a prog person in the 90s like me. All right, so Darren Lock, I'll just mention, I watched him for a little while. Then I stopped watching him. I mean, I know he covered a lot of prog. He was like, if someone's going to prog review on YouTube, he was the first one to do it. I just kind of got worn out by some of his sort of dragging kind of, opinions about some music. And I didn't find him that engaging, unfortunately. I know people loved him and he grew, and then he like got rid of his channel and like relaunched it. I don't know. I haven't watched Darren in a long time, but yeah, I know he had some controversy, and so I just kind of, I remember Downfall telling me about him, actually, Brady from Downfall Network. But so then there's a channel called DropZ Spilling the Tea, who I don't know if she belongs in this era exactly. She was a reaction channel. She is, I guess, still. But again, a rare case of a woman doing YouTube reacting to Prog, which has happened more and more, but it was pretty rare when I first caught her. But I like her channel. I know she was more active. I think if she had started in the last few years, she'd probably have a Patreon. I think she took a break from YouTube and she's come back recently. I think she does like live streams more now. Larry Graves, the Canadian Studmuffin, of course. Yes, people know him. He's been around. He probably started around the same time the Needle Drop did. And he's grown and grown and grown. I again, a little bit like Darren Lock, I grew a little bit tired of him, but I never disliked him, but I never found, engaged by him. And he wasn't going to talk about Kevin Gilbert. He's going to talk about, Sparks and the Beatles. So it's like, if I want old school and I want people talking about vinyl, I go to Larry Graves. I remember Downfall talked about him a number of times when I was chatting with him. I don't think I'd heard of him until Downfall told me about him. EQPTV, Elliot, who actually did like a shared needle drop discussion once. He one point said his favorite album was Pink Floyd's Animals. Then literally 2 years later, he says, I don't like prog. I'm only focusing on indie rock. It was weird. But him along with Daniel Flux and a guy named Hamish, they used to do these group chats, and they loved Maudlin Llewellyn. There were a couple other metal bands they liked. But he was like this young kid. I couldn't believe how young he was, making videos about music that was like 40 years old. He's still on, although he's doing like his own music, I guess. And he's, he's all grown up now. It's just interesting because it's been 10 years since he was on there. But he got like posted on some news sites. He was a little bit like, he reminded me when Neve the Prog Nerd showed up, reminded me a lot of Elliot, actually, in some ways. But yeah, EQPTV, I always liked his channel. I liked him. If he posted a video, he did a 5 recommended prog albums. He included like Tool in there and Dream Theater and Rush. Anyway, the album man along the same lines, guy who kind of looks like he could be like the grandson of Steve Howe. He goes, long live rock and roll. And his favorite band was Guns N' Roses. But I really liked, and he did like a series on the history of like the guitar and distortion, and he was doing a Beatles series. He was the one who was criticizing, what was it? There's one Beatles song he was criticizing. I couldn't believe it. But I think he was also one of the ones who hated Moonchild from the Court of the Crimson King, which I go to bat for Moonchild. I say, watch Buffalo 66 and tell me you still hate Moonchild. But no, the album, even though like Elliot, he was in high school or even younger when he started, and he gave himself the moniker, the Album Man, which is kind of funny, but I really liked him. And right around the time he'd do record store day hauls and stuff, he'd show vinyl, and he had interest in a lot of older music. Although I remember he talked about some of the more like recent, like 2000s and 2010s, sort of like hard rock. Who's the band? There was one band that I know the guys on Usbin Radio talked about a fair amount too. Kind of in the like event, like Vertical Horizon, that kind of, Suns. He talked about that. I'd never heard of that band, and I've seen them pop up many times since. Anyway, I'll probably remember it after. I'll put it in the descriptions. So moving on. Okay, there's a channel called FREQS, FREQS in caps, and it was called FREQS TV, and they were kind of launching about sort of like do like a music like documentary series, and they were featuring people like content makers, and they actually did feature me in an episode. I was holding up one album. It was Pink Floyd. I think it was like 5 albums that made you a music fan or something like that. But the guy was like based in like Germany or something. However, he was totally American. It's like kind of like Jack Harkness in the Doctor Who universe. You're living in England, but you sound as American as anyone from here. But they were really cool. I mean, they reached out to me, and they did a few documentary series on like modern prog where they talked about like Riverside and Porcupine Tree. I forget who else. They haven't done videos in a few years at least. I think they might be doing they may be on TikTok or maybe just be doing like podcasting now, but I liked them. Their videos were really well made too, but I maybe just didn't have the time or something. Red Letter Media. if you want something that was like early YouTube comedy, this was one of those sort of like movie reviews, but like it's like Rotten Tomatoes parody in some ways. And I haven't really watched them in a long time, but for a while there, I was watching some of the reviews, some of their takes. They've done a few things on like horror movie series. They're talking about Friday the 13th. I remember two guys sitting on two like recliners, explaining why Nightmare on Elm Street was relevant and all this stuff. It was comical. But I don't watch them. I know they still have probably a pretty big following. BangerTV, which is Sam Dunn with two N's, who was behind the lighted stage from the Rush movie, the Iron Maiden documentary series, and then the Metal Evolution. Is it Evolution or Revolution? I think it was Metal Evolution. Sam Dunn isn't even on there half the time, but I did watch some of their polls. They had Dan Briggs from Between the Buried and Me on there. They're talking about, well, define what are the most progressive metal bands and everything like that. And they had a chart. And they were posting a lot of content, but they didn't do that much on prog metal. So I kind of stopped watching. For a little while there, I liked seeing their debates and their lists. Of course, I'd point out they didn't have certain bands on there. Like they didn't have Pain of Salvation on their prog metal list, which made no sense to me. But, again, on Sam Dunn's, Metal Evolution, his prog episode didn't talk about them either. They barely talked about Fate's Warning. So, okay. So I mentioned, Fulton's reviews. Someone I know he was on the Mike Portnoy forum. He used to make really good reviews. Like he showed like The Hand Cannot Erase, large deluxe book and everything. And he'd always do his albums of the year. He did like concert reviews. He was definitely like a Between the Buried and Me fan, obviously Dream Theater, Rush, Porcupine Tree. He talked about a lot of that stuff, but he would only at one point make like 2 videos a year, but his videos were really well made. He probably got too busy. I know he actually met the Needle Drop in person at like one of his events, and like, Needle Drop and him were, I don't know, they were pretty buddies or whatever. Even though the Needle Drop doesn't like prog, it's like, yeah, but you have a cool channel. But yeah, Fulton was great. Although again, he posted a video, I want to say a couple years ago. I think he's on, I'm friends with him on Facebook. I've seen him post stuff on some social media, but his YouTube channel is very limited. Hamish Observes, or now he's known as Morbid Obscurity. And he is, he hung out frequently with Daniel Flux and with EQPTV. And again, I think of my love of Maudlin of the Well with that group. I mean, they talked about other stuff, but Hamish himself did poetry and some other stuff, like scientific reading and historical reading. He talked about other stuff besides music. He had an interesting channel as a young guy. He still has his channel. I think he's made some videos in the last year, but I don't know how much on music. I know his interest in prog and prog metal had its sort of limit, but I still liked his channel. I liked it when him and like Elliot, EQPTV and Daniel Flux would do their group chats, because they talk about like what are 5 albums. They were doing the albums of the year chat long before like Notes Reviews and those guys were doing it. And they're all grown up now, which is just weird, but that's what happens. Time catches up with you. Jammindude, guy I've known from the Mike Portnoy forum. I forget his name now. His name is Ben, and also on the Dream Theater forums. And he had a theme song that was kind of like Mr. Rogers, done by this prog band. And, he talked about Fate's Warning and a lot of the Seattle stuff, Queensryche. He's actually a big Jellyfish fan. But, his whole thing was he would have a Russian, like a black Russian, and do a review of a concert. And he did some interviews at like Seattle Comic-Con or something like that. So he didn't only talk about music, but he hasn't done much of his channel in a long time. But I still see him post on the Dream Theater forums and occasionally on social media. So I liked his channel. Unfortunately, like me, his channel never fully took off. I thought his videos were really well made, and that theme song he had from that guy was great. Okay, so the Amoeba What's in My Bag series popped up around this time. Amoeba What's in My Bag is still a great series, even though there's a lot of people that show up there I don't care for, but I have to always watch it. If it's someone I know or someone I know, like my wife knows, I'll watch it. What's in their bag. And of course, I've gone to Amoeba and done 2 of those videos myself. I'm not being interviewed by the people, but yeah, those are always fun to watch. I still like those. And that popped up. I don't know. It was probably around it was after Record Store Day had started, but it was probably about 10 years ago. Among the people, like you had Cedric from the Mars Volta. Stephen Wilson did one at home, I think. Portnoy's never done one, which is weird. I think Mike Ackerfeld did one though once. And then you have people like Rick Astley on there talking about prog, and I show it to my wife and it cracks her up. But yeah, love Amoeba What's in My Bag. The Kevinpollakchatshow. And again, I'm not 100% certain this was only on YouTube. Kevin Pollak, the actor and comedian, and his sort of co-host, sort of, you want to call his Andy Richter or Ed McMahon, Sam Levine, the Sam Levine with 2 M's from Freaks and Geeks and a few other things. So it was their version of like, doing a talk show. It was always on Sundays, but they didn't have to worry about, expletives and rules. And I mean, they produced it really well. Actually, his producer's name was Jamie Foxx, which I think is his wife. They did it for, I want to say, almost 10 years. So, I mean, it was probably the early days of YouTube, or it might have been on another site they broadcast from. I forget. Because I associate some of these like videos and like things I remember with MySpace initially. Because that's how far back YouTube goes. It launched around the same time as MySpace. But yeah, it's too bad Kevinpollakchatshow isn't around anymore. But they even had the guys from Psych on there. They had, you name the comedians, they had most of the comedians you'd like. He always would say, "Get the fuck out of my face." It was hilarious. It was very thorough too. It was like a 2-hour chat. So it was a podcast in effect. Morow.com, just for like prog rock, and especially in Europe, reviews of musicians. One that would pop up, I subscribe to and watch. Off the Record, I want to say that's the channel with the guy who used to do Record Store Day videos. And he was very much into like the punk scene and the hipster scene. And then his taste started to change. And then he stopped. I think his Twitter handle is like my Fugazi t-shirt or something like that. I like that guy's name was Paul, but like a lot of these channels, they just kind of moved on to do other things, and they're not doing YouTube or under a different handle. So here's one I really miss still, really liked. It's a channel called Velocities and Music. And there's these 2 guys, Jake and Tom. They're from Iowa, and they actually came to shows at First Avenue in Minneapolis, but I never met them, unfortunately. But they were doing the group YouTube right around the same time Needle Drop. In fact, arguably they were more successful than Needle Drop. Oh yeah, I know Ron. Yeah, I've known him for a long time. He's still doing his interviews in his group chats. Shout out to Prog Report as well. I don't know if he's on my list. I can't remember. I didn't put everyone. This would have been like a massively 10-hour stream if I would have gotten every name on here. But just getting back to Velocities of Music, they would do like these deep dives. They eventually became a podcast, did the deep dives. They would do album reviews. And I actually kind of, at one point I liked Tom's taste more than Jake's, but toward the end, I actually think I sided more with Jake. It was weird with certain bands like Coheed and Cambria or with Rush or with Metallica or whatever. So yeah, Velocity's music were really good. I know they were just kind of, I know one guy, Jake, he moved to Arizona, so they couldn't do their YouTube videos together. But I don't know, maybe someday they'll come back. Maybe they're on TikTok. I don't know. Just like Used Radio, it'd be great for these particular media sources of music to come back. Strong Boys 19, who still is active, although I'll admit I don't watch his videos very much anymore, but I do see him comment a lot. I see him in live streams occasionally, and I see him on Facebook. So a shout out to him. I watched him a little bit. I mean, he seems to like a lot of older music, although I don't know how old he is. I think he may be from somewhere in Europe. I could be wrong. But Strong Boys 19. Okay, another sort of personal friend of mine, Vinyl Fury. Dan Fury, who I first met back in like 2007 when I saw Caddisfly for the first time. And he was Caddisfly's basically like their manager, and he helped do a lot of stuff for Caddisfly, the band from Portland, Oregon. And I met him, I don't know, every time Caddisfly came here, he was here. So probably 4 or 5 times in person. But he's a musician himself, but he also is a vinyl collector. And at some point I discovered he did a podcast, a couple different podcasts, but he did his Vinyl Fury YouTube channel. And he would talk about his prog on there, but not that much. I mean, Caddisfly is a prog band, among other styles, but he liked a lot of sort of 90s alternative music, especially and a lot of post rock and everything like that. He's got a great vinyl collection. He's gotten sort of a lot of jazz the last few years, and his the focus of his channel is his vinyl. So I really have always liked his videos. I always watch them beginning to end. And there's certain bands that like he'll talk about that I'll discover and vice versa. It's weird. Like he's been talking about Foals and a couple other bands recently the last few years. Unfortunately, I don't know when he's going to be making videos again, because I think he had some issues with his living situation. So, because I know he had to move a few times, but yeah, because he's done production, he's recorded, he's very versed in technology and like what's good, he's very much of like he'll listen to records and say, I don't think it's very clean. And he's an active Discog person. So I think a lot of people in the vinyl community have a similar mentality that Dan does. But yeah, Vinyl Fury, great. So I forget the name of his channel initially, Sean something. A friend of mine named Sean goes by SW Studio Productions. He launched his channel, I want to say only a year or two after mine. But he was doing vinyl on there, but then he also did movie reviews, and he's focused a lot more on doing movies and television, but he's not doing much on his YouTube channel anymore. He's got a podcast and he's posting stuff on social media, but he always bugs me about any TV show or movie he wants to ask me about. He still likes his music. He's a big Bowie fan. He likes his favorite band, I guess, is Bananarama. So the 80s pop fan, even though he's only like maybe in his mid-20s, he loves the 80s pop just like myself and my wife. So I always it's like, do you know this band? Of course. And like, I watch Jake Rude, of course, when he does the live streams on Twitch, and Jake Rude, the classic alternative streams on Twitch, which goes back to when he was originally launched his channel his show on The Current, and then his live DJ gigs. Jake Rude basically plays tons of music from the late 70s through like the maybe early 90s, and the quote unquote classic alternative college rock per se. This guy, and there's one other channel I watch, totally their taste crossover with Jake. So I ended up watching like, oh, I wonder if Sean knows this band. Moviecore was a movie channel I watched for a brief period. I remember they introduced me to that show, The End of the Fucking World on Netflix. But that was another short-lived sort of channel. I don't know if they're still around. I can't remember. But they did quick, like 5-minute movie reviews. Maybe they're on TikTok now. And I was perfect because I was like wondering about like A, B, C, D, and E movies or even shows, and I just go to their channel. But and the guy was kind of brutally honest. He wouldn't pull any punches, even spoilers. I didn't mind because it's like, well, I still want to get the review. So Screenrant and What Culture, you can almost lump these two together. Can say when I stop watching Watch Mojo, these were the two I kept for movies and like gossip news and stuff like that. And they were more about lists, but they weren't so, here's the top 10 list. Who are the honorable mentions? They just did like random groups of lists of stuff in Hollywood mostly. And I still like them, but I only watch maybe one of their videos every couple months. I used to watch them more regularly. If it's something personally, if they were talking about Ghost World or something, obviously I'd click on it. But then go along the runs with movie reviews. What the Flick used to be or became Breakfast All Day, in effect. It's Christine, what's her last name? And Lorenzo Duralde. Anyway, they were two, like Christine was on At the Movies when Roger Ebert was ill, and it was Richard Roper, and they had a guest frequently. And you know, it was basically like a At the Movies or Siskel and Ebert for YouTube. I mean, there's other ones that are out there, but they were one of the first ones. And then they kind of transitioned to becoming known as Breakfast All Day. I don't watch them as much as I would like to. I did watch a little bit of their Oscar coverage last night, but I still like them, but it's still kind of limited. I mean, they're a channel that's popular, but they're not at the same level of like Chris Tuckman. That's why I think Chris Tuckman should go on their show. I don't know if they've ever reached out and that's happened. I don't know. So there's two channels that were very good for humor I've watched sort of in this early period. How It Should Have Ended and Funny or Die. Funny or Die, I believe, featured among one point a character named Chad Vader. He was hilarious. He listed dressed up in a Darth Vader outfit, and he would go around. He would go to like grocery stores and stuff. It was funny, man, on the street stuff, but in the Darth Vader voice and everything. But How It Should Have Ended, of course, was taking movies and I think some TV shows, and they would do an animated version of like they wish it had ended this way. And I don't know how active they've been. I mean, obviously those kind of things would take a lot of work. And a lot of times they've been doing movies I haven't seen. So it's like, it doesn't really mean much to me to watch something and they're telling me how it should have ended, even if it's funny. I mean, I remember the Avengers movie and they're all like hanging out at the pancake house and everything like that. But, all right. So now we're going on to the next generation, the last 5+ years. So the first one to talk about is called Spin Me Round Store, which in effect, when Bull Moose and Chris Brown kind of ended their record store day special videos, these guys kind of took up and started doing the same thing. And I like their record store day videos. They're pretty thorough, almost too thorough. It's kind of hit and miss. They they kind of go crazy with, look at this, and they show everything, and look at this. And I still like them, but it doesn't kind of have the charm. And they kind of they cycle, and then sometimes they'll just go through new arrivals and stuff like that. And I mean, I still watch them, but I don't like them as much as I liked Record Store Day. But I'm glad they're making them, because for a channel to actually show advanced Record Store Day copies, it's good for the special releases. It's good to see. Too Many Records. That's a channel I was watching for a while. They would do they're based in California, I believe, the guy. And they would do Record Store Day at Amoeba and everything like that. The guy got, and it was very hipster. He gave me this huge hipster vibe about it, and I just kind of jumped ship, kind of like I jumped ship on the Needle Drop and Consequence of Sound. This is right when a lot of reaction channels, this is like 2018, where reaction channels were starting to pop up. So one of them was this woman named Ambrose Cynthia. Another kind of she would do reactions to metal and prog, and you don't typically see a lot of African-American women reacting to that stuff. I think she's American. She might have been based somewhere else, but she's done a lot of prog metal and prog reactions. So I always liked her, but I reaction channels, I kind of only watched sparingly now. I watched them more for a while. Okay, so here's one that a little bit of controversy just came up, but so my wife and I, we had a little chihuahua. It wasn't a chihuahua. She was like a mix, Coco, or we had to put down 2020, our dog. But of course, I kind of become sort of attached and always eye spotting dogs that look a little bit like your dog. Like the guitarist Mike Linden from the band Super Pilots and Solo had a dog that looked exactly like Coco. Where there's this one dog called Nacho. It's called Nacho Cam. And I started watching that. It was a cute dog that looked like a golden little chihuahua. And the couple didn't have any kids. They would just show Nacho doing different stuff. And then suddenly they had kids, and we got less of Nacho. Unfortunately, just the other day, Nacho passed away, and they showed it. That was a little hard to believe. But anyway, I still like Nacho Cam. I don't know if they're gonna get another dog at some point, I would watch it. But it was a little weird to see that. So, all right, Elephant in the Room, Sea of Tranquility. It was probably a little before that, but I didn't start watching his channel regularly probably till around 2017, 2018. Yeah, I used to think he used to have this phrase that goes, he'd take a CD or whatever. I wish I had actually, I do. I have, let's see, where is it? My apologies. Do I have one? No, I've got to have one. This is like only the one below here. Yeah, how about this? All right, so what's this right here? I used to always say, I think he would say, how about a little Spock's beard? How about a little Spock's? I used to think Pete Pardo should be saying that every time I heard him talk. He goes, how about a little Spock's beard? How about a little Spock's beard? He would, in the early days of Sea of Tranquility, he was just doing reviews, what's hot, and he did a sandwich review once, and I liked watching him, and he would, I liked watching those reviews. They were very simple, and I, of course, liked the magazine. I've got copies of Sea of Tranquility around here somewhere. So I was a subscriber, and of course, James Bickers, who founded the magazine. So I obviously wanted to watch his channel. That was before he kind of started to really catch on and become this voice for prog on YouTube. But yeah, I mean, Sea of Tranquility, just like me, tried doing YouTube because he was doing the writing and wanted to see if he could, find a new audience on YouTube. Obviously, the last 5 years have been massive for him, and he has. I have not, but that was my mentality, the same thing. I didn't even mention at the beginning. My mentality was, why wouldn't the people that read the blog also come to the YouTube channel? You think vice versa, the people that watch the YouTube channel would read the blog. And it's become very little, if any, for me, but for him, I don't know. I don't know if his website has absolutely blown up in the same process of his YouTube channel has the last 5 years. So let's see, Enoma, that was another reaction channel. These East Indian psychiatric, they're like psychologists. They would break down songs from a psychological point of view. I like them, but it got to be a little too over analytical for me with some of the songs. But they even reacted to Dredge. They formed a Patreon. That was when Patreon was starting to really become popular. I was on the Reign of Kindo's Patreon, but they had a Patreon, so they're getting Patreon requests. And yeah, I like them, but I stopped watching them. I guess they're still active. for good for them. But anyway, so that's right on the time I pretty much started noticing Notes Reviews, which he was one of the best sort of prog and obscure prog reviewers on YouTube. Yeah, I loved a lot of his reviews. He even did he'd do like Q&As and lives. He did some live streams too, and then he started doing the group videos, of course, too, in the last few years. There's a channel called Lai Likes Music who did the guy who does that's now on Instagram giving like guitar tips. But he did these really great animation videos. In fact, I'd like to try to make videos a little bit like him, but I don't know if I could do the animation he does. But he did like, what makes the Mars Volta great, or, it was like the story behind this, or the truth behind this, or investigating Muse or stuff like that. What makes Pink Floyd's Animals so significant? Yeah, I missed that guy, but he wanted to do guitar lessons instead. So Nader Tot love to do documentaries, like dissections of TV series, mostly. Not only sci-fi, but some sci-fi, including Psych. When he started doing the Psych stuff, I had to basically connect with him in some way. And he loved the USA Network shows from the 2000s. He hasn't been as active the last few years. And I mean, he's done a few videos I haven't commented on, some stuff that I didn't know. But when he was doing the USA Network shows, and I don't remember what other stuff he did, some Star Trek stuff, I was like, this guy's great. And I wish he was more popular, but he's still doing it, I guess. So there was a reaction channel I found called 3 Years Apart, which was a father and their two kids, mostly the two kids. They were like 14 and 10. It showed up right before COVID. And they're not doing videos now. They're supposedly are going to try coming back, but they were doing your prog and your, power pop and stuff like that. It was a good channel for a short while. Ren Rants, who's this woman who does like rants and dissections of things mostly in Hollywood and pop culture. She just did one on the movie Van Helsing the other day, which was really well made. Great channel. I don't know. I mean, she only does a few videos a year, I think, because it just, I know she took a break and then came back. I found her way after she had started. So the Omaha Introvert, Hannah, Vinyl Community regular, very into power pop, like the Monkees and like Jellyfish, but also into her post-punk. She totally knows all that, like the stuff that Jake Rude does on his show. I always told her she would probably like, but she's from Nebraska. And she would be doing a lot of like vinyl record store shopping stuff. But yeah, I mean, our tastes aren't like that doesn't cross over that much, but occasionally here and there, she'll talk about a band I've never heard of that I'll check out. She's not a prog head though. But I mean, she likes a little bit of it, but for the most part, her tastes are more with like the classic alternative and post-punk. But the power pop stuff she likes, I generally find some interest in. And there's a reason why she's been pretty popular. She's even was quoted on this podcast recently I was listening to about power pop. Become the Night, which I kind of have shied away from him. I'm still subscribed to him, but dude was kind of like the Jim Rome of metal. I mean, he's a guitarist, and he liked to make tier lists and melt down at people. Looks like Alex is on. Hi, Alex. How you doing? Yeah. Become the Night is, I know he's done like lectures and like different, he talked to college students because he was a student. He's a guitarist. I enjoy his meltdowns when he would just criticize things from a technical standpoint. I was on board. I mean, I know some people are kind of bugged by him, but if you don't mind sort of some guys like melting down, criticizing music, even though you don't agree with it, it can be comical. It's like that old meme when people were giving, who's the band that opened for Dream Theater? Trivium. Like it's like, oh, you're just a not a Metallica ripoff, but basically just a boring derived thrash band or whatever. Like there used to be memes about Trivium on YouTube and on social media and message boards left and right. Doesn't happen anymore, but I still associate Trivium with that. This dude is like part of that whole culture with some of these bands, and I find it entertaining. Other people don't, but I find it entertaining. He does love Dream Theater, though he's criticized them too, and I got to interview John Petrucci. So Lost in Vegas. So right around the time I kind of stopped watching the needle drop, these guys popped in. They were doing reaction videos. They got to 1 million subscribers, and I want to say in probably about 2 years. Now, they launched a Patreon. I loved them when they first launched. unfortunately, like a lot of channels, then they went to Patreon, and I'm not paying for Patreon to watch you react to a song. So unfortunately, I have not. They'll upload their Patreon videos like 6 months later, and I see the dates on some of the comments, and they're months old. I'm like, why does this say, you know, August 31st if it's December 5th? But I like them. The funny thing is, when we watch some of their reactions, my wife was criticizing, like, you know, how old are you? You don't know who Marvin Gaye is. You know, you've been living under a rock. You got to talk to your parents, and they need to school you on this music now. But, you know, Lost in Vegas, you know, there are two black dudes that love hip hop that started getting into metal, was really cool. And it seemed to be a pattern. There's been a lot of that recently. Jamel's another one. I don't think I have Jamel on this list, which, you know, I don't know why it is, because they never got exposed to metal and prog because their friends don't listen to it. But a lot of them are discovering, well, yeah, there's some cool riffs. I like to bang my head to some of this stuff, just like I bang my head to hip hop. So, yeah, along those lines, Pink Metalhead popped up, and she was, you know, black girl who liked her metal. I mean, how cool is that? And I watched her for a while there. I don't watch her quite as much anymore. And she started doing like makeup videos and some other stuff, like it became a trend on YouTube. So, but you know, I think she still does stuff. I just haven't watched her that much. LE, her name is Lisa, who I know through the vinyl community. She's someone that always used to leave me comments, and it was very supportive. And I was telling her about Porcupine Tree and Blackfield. I was like, I told her about Blackfield because she didn't know Blackfield. She knew Porcupine Tree. I forget. But she still makes videos. She just kind of does her own thing. She plays her guitar. The vinyl community knows her totally. So if you don't know LE or Lisa, check her out. Although her channel is not easy to find. You do a search. Yeah, Trivium did open for Dream Theater. I know, but they were a meme. They were a constant meme from people. Trivium. Oh my God. Now, I don't know the 1970. I know the name, the 1975. I've never listened to them, although they've gotten nominated for like Grammys or like American Music Awards. All right, so going down the list, I'll get done with soon. Kellen Rich was a reaction channel who eventually moved to Patreon, like many other ones. I think they stopped, but it was a couple. The woman was like a classical singer. She never heard metal or prog or classic rock growing up. The guy, of course, had the total prog background, and they lost their son or something like that to some unforeseen circumstance. So they wanted to do something in his honor. So they started doing reaction channels, and they caught on. I don't know how many subscribers they end up getting, 40 or 50,000. But the one guy, Rich, he's still on Facebook. I see him post once in a while. But so Derek, okay, this is Derek Higgins, which I'm surprised I put him in this era. He's another staple of the vinyl community. Everyone knows. And he got an interview. Was it Steve Hackett or someone from some other band the other day? But yeah, he posts like a video almost every day. He's played on albums. He's got vinyl, you know, I mean, he kind of, just like Lisa, he does his thing and people love him. I will always be subscribed to him. I don't always watch him, but I like him. Let's see here. So Deep Cuts, that was a very short-lived thing where the dude did like a prog recommendation list. He featured the Mars Volta and some other bands. And I like posted it on social media and the blog and everything. And then within 2 years, you didn't hear from the guy. I saw him post on Twitter, but I don't know how many videos he's done the last few years. Other than that, I think he's basically focused more on hipster. His channel's coverage seemed to mirror a lot of the Needle Drop and some of these other channels. And so I don't watch him. I'm still subscribed, but I don't watch him anymore. Ranger View, a guy who did obscure television documentaries like from the 70s and 80s. Like when I was watching like Buck Rogers or Space 1999, he did a thing on it. So I was like, it was cool to like watch someone give me a summary. And then I found Logan's Run the TV series. I think he did one on that too. But he's another channel I don't think has been as active recently. Kira's a diver. Kira was a diver who I believe it started out as a reaction channel, and she shows vinyl. And I know she's friends with like Mary's Taste in Music and maybe even Neve, the prog nerd. But she did a couple of videos with her father, like Neve. I love those videos because you get the father's perspective about talking about his history in music and listening to, spinning vinyl, the vinyl he bought, a lot of prog, a lot of old classic rock and blues. And then she's the modern, she's the 20-something talking about what her father's introduced her to. But I don't think she's as active as she was. Right around the time of COVID, she was starting to get really active, but she's from Australia, I believe. So I don't know if whatever, that didn't have anything to do with it. But the vinyl record collecting there is maybe not the same degree, or she just hasn't been going on YouTube as much. AGK's Vinyl Life. I remember the Prog Nerd showing up on a live stream with him and Mark Anthony K. And that was the first time I'd been introduced to him. Guy from Canada who he likes a lot of his prog, but also is like obscure classic rock, and like he likes modern, like he kind of likes everything. And he has the those Funko Pops like this. Got whole assortment of them in the background. But I've always liked him, although, and I did a couple of his contest entries. But I know he's had some health issues, just like myself and a lot of people. So his channel hasn't been as active recently. But All the World's a Stage. Steve, of course, who supported my channel a few years ago. I always try to watch Steve's videos and chime in when I can. But yeah, I mean, he always starts his videos off with his shirt right in the front like this, you know, among other trademarks. But yeah, another channel that I've been really into the last few years. Lair the Alchemist. Now he was on, I want to say, with Pete Pardo, maybe? Yeah, I was into him for a little while. I know he interviewed some people, but I haven't been watching him the last few years. Soul Night Live, Sean Tonar, from who I've known for ages because I've been on the progressiveears.com message board. And he started doing interviews right around the COVID, and he did a ton of years. He showed up on Sea of Tranquility at one point, of course. So yeah, I don't know. He's maybe been busier. He still does like the head-to-head every day on Facebook, but his YouTube channel has had less activity. But I think it was pretty much if he could get an interview, he'd do it on there. But he hasn't been doing as many interviews, and he was doing the interviews also on Facebook. So I think that was part of it. I think the genesis started on Facebook, where he'd interview people there, and then at some point he started doing it on YouTube, and he was showing up on Sea of Tranquility. So he did a YouTube channel, but I'm not sure how much he uses it anymore. He might be, but. Polyphonic, a channel that unfortunately just went on hiatus, and I didn't discover them until a couple of years ago, but they made really, really good documentaries, kind of like Rail NYC, but just for like whole history of like guitar and everything like that. But he had his own like agenda with this Nebula network, which is like an alternative to YouTube, and other things that YouTube didn't, but you had to pay to subscribe to really use it on Nebula. But he's doing some other things now. But if you want to see some really well-made rock documentaries, Polyphonics, yeah, he permanently moved to Nebula, Christian? Yeah, that's what I thought, unfortunately. But I always liked his channel. Maybe we'll see. He said it's not permanent, but who knows? Professor Rock, someone my wife and I have been watching basically throughout COVID frequently. Of course, he's kind of like a modern day or wannabe my generation's Casey Kasem. And he's talked about a lot of stuff, including Rush and Genesis. He's never talked about Yes, though. I don't know why that is, but he features a lot of stuff in the 80s. He does stories, anecdotes. He's had tons of interviews. And, you know, he's someday he's going to get to 1 million subscribers. He's pretty close. He's at like 850. But the guy's great. I mean, for the most part, Adam Reeder. He's like a Casey Kasem for the next generation in some ways. Let's see here. So the similitude of Prog Rock Doc. Prog Rock Doc is a channel that anyone in Prague probably knows. They do live streams of shows. They did like, what was it? A stream of the 2010 festival. Download, or was it not Download? The festival that featured Marillion was featured, and Transatlantic that I watched. I mean, they've done, you name it. They'll do an album full or a live performance of Prague. And it can be obscure. They did Oceansize once. I was almost shocked by they did a live Oceansize broadcast. So Prog Rock Doc, if you don't know it, you probably should find it if you like Prague. The Similitude of Prague, Brent, of course, who has been on those, you know, group chats with Notes Reviews and everyone. He, you know, I remember the one comment he made to me about Purism Revolution. You know, it's like, well, I have someone who loves Purism Revolution like myself on YouTube. So, but yeah, I mean, I know he made a comment on a video recently I made, and he's on the YouTube group or the Facebook group that I started about YouTubers and everything like that. But yeah, if you don't know Brent's channel, you like Prague, you should definitely check it out. Weird History and Weird History Food. I don't lump that together. So Weird History started doing these timeline videos. A friend of my wife's told us about, and they were cool. Like they did 1 year every video for a decade. It was right when COVID started. So they did the 1980s first. They did all stuff, where it would be music, film, news, toys, food, whatever, anything in the news. They did it in chronological order. The videos took a long time, but to make, I'm sure. So they only did 1 decade a year. And the narrator was this hilarious guy. I believe his name is Tom Blank. So they did the 1980s in the year 2020, the 1990s in the year 2021, and then the 1970s in the year 2022. They didn't do one last year. I don't know if they're doing one this year. They do other things besides these timeline videos, but the timeline ones are the best ones. And so what happened was like 2 years ago, maybe a year and a half ago, then they launched an offshoot called Weird History Food, which that one has been more regular. They're doing videos every week about this food and that. They just did a video on the history of Diet Coke, but and restaurants and anything like that. And my wife, they've got some new narrators. The woman narrator is okay because they're doing like 2 videos a week now. The other narrator they have, I don't love, but really, if you get a video with Tom Blank narrating, it's worth watching because he sounds like Phil Hartman. He's hilarious, very sarcastic, very witty. It always syncs up with whatever they're showing on the screen. Yeah, so let's see here. Moving on, I'm trying to get through the rest of this list. I'm not gonna have a voice anymore. Let's see here. Fairly Secret Music. Dave, who's local, who's from my hometown here. Big Marillion fan. He did these Marillion dissections with his friend Ryan, Ryan has a movie channel, which they make like 3-hour videos. Yeah, Dave shows his CDs. He's a very, very pro compact disc guy, which I still have compact discs, of course. Still have compact discs. But I guess he had vinyl at one point. He used to work at record stores and stuff like that. He's a few years older than me. I had never met him until a couple years ago when I went to Adrian Ballou. But he makes really good videos. He hit over 1,000 subscribers a couple years ago. But he talks about compact discs, and he loves his prog, he loves his metal, loves his old school metal. He's not into like, I don't know how much recent stuff, but he loves pop. He loves, Dave's great. His videos are great, and he makes comments on mine frequently, and I comment on his frequently. Let's see here. It's just weird that I've lived in the same town as him for all these years, and I never ran into him, given that we have similar tastes. Rail NYC, who just did an interview with Scott from the Prog Corner, of course. Yeah, he makes really great videos, and he spends like, days or months probably making them. I don't know if he's going to just restrict them just to the 70s. I know he was talking about in an interview with Scott about how a lot of this stuff has to be like archive footage. You got to find archive audio and archive footage to really do it well. So the odds of him making a video on like the Mars Volta or the Deer Hunter probably aren't very high. But he probably, I don't know if he's going to go through your 70s bands and do the more obscure ones. Maybe he'll dive into jazz fusion. That would be one of my optimistic hopes. He might do Marillion. I could see at some point him doing some documentaries on like at least the Fish stuff, Misplaced Childhood or Clutching maybe, or maybe the debut album. Let's see here. The Vinyl Guru, woman from Canada who has like all these connections. Of course, she shows vinyl. She loves her metal, her 80s metal. She loves some prog. She loves some modern music, and she loves a lot of female artists. And I follow on Instagram. She's posting way more on Instagram than she posts on YouTube now, but she has some good videos. She showed her tape collection once, and if she gets a vinyl haul, she's done that a few times, of course. And again, she's like interviewed people. I think more of that's on her other social media, though, not YouTube. Okay, so 16 Leo. It's a guy who my wife stumbled upon a few years ago. There's this guy named Skippy from Utah who is a virgin, a notable virgin. He's like goes on dates and films them. And I don't know, it never really was fully a bit, but 16 Leo would do these long dissections to Skippy's videos. And eventually, just like 6 months ago, last year sometime, he actually had Skippy on his channel. But those are the best 16 Leo videos. He's doing other stuff. Like he just did one where he ate the menu at IHOP or something like that. He's done reactions to like soap operas and reality shows. But the best stuff is when he's kind of giving Skippy, the criticism. It's like, no, I don't think you want to ask her to come back to your house, Skippy. That wouldn't be me, Along those same lines, this guy named Cinnamon Toast Ken, who's like a massive YouTuber. And I guess I would throw the Try Guys, who became massive. They even got parodied on SNL, that my wife watched, and so I ended up watching a good amount. And Good Mythical Morning as well. Cinnamon Toast Ken, they just do reactions to anything. He moved to Down Under a couple of years ago. He was from like Tennessee or something like that. And his co-host still lives here. But Good Mythical Morning, those guys are massive too. And they would try different foods mostly. They try like comparing 5 different kinds of chicken nuggets and stuff like that. It's interesting. My wife finds more appeal to it, but I still end up watching it because she does. Watcher, which is the 2 guys that used to be on BuzzFeed, Ryan and Shane, who do like tours and stuff too. They do like live events, but they do like ghost hunting, which, I mean, the one dude believes in it, the other dude doesn't. It's entertaining. And I mean, they're well-produced videos. They have a lot of money and they go on site. I'd like them to come here because we have like a psychiatric ward in Anoka, Minnesota that seriously is haunted. They should go there, but I don't know what their schedule and if there's any motivation. You have to get in touch with them or something. So, and I mean, when they were here last fall, someone should have talked to them then. They should have done, if they would have done it, they would have done it then. So, okay, the Prog Dog, Dean Wolf, love his channel. I know he started out doing just guitar stuff, and then he became a reaction channel. But he loves his Rush. He loves his prog. He's doing a series now where he's talking about like certain like 50-year albums, like Tales from Traffic After Ocean. Showed a bunch of YouTubers, great videos. You know, he's talked about a lot of bands that a lot of channels don't. They like done reactions to them, like Dirt Robbins. So Dean Wolf, great. He's been on the prog stream a few times too. Taste Like Music. Those guys are great. I discovered them during COVID. They were a great alternative, a channel that talked some about prog, but then some stuff. It was, you know, you name it. They go over the Rate Your Music top 100 list. They did a whole Procol Harum dissection. They talked about, you know, what was the one? Paul Simon. I love channels that don't restrict themselves to one style, but still, you know, I can connect with in some way. And they like some of the obscure stuff. They're like fans of the Gutter Twins. I don't know too many other channels that I follow that know the Gutter Twins. Maybe one or two. Anyway. Rowan J. Coleman. Rowan J. Coleman has made these really great documentary kind of things on sci-fi shows, mostly. Some movies, too. Although I remember it made a comment or two he didn't like, because I was criticizing, like, I don't think that was the case with Star Trek or whatever. What was canon, what wasn't. But, yeah, because he was, like, really happy to see Babylon 5 get picked up by the CW. I'm like, I do not want my show to show up on what is basically like a teen network in effect. But he's like, no, this is going to be a great, and it didn't happen at this point. That the Babylon 5 reboot, if it ever does happen, probably isn't going to show up on the CW. I'm thankful for that. I hope it goes on to HBO, or Max or whatever. Let's see here. Dr. Spin, Jeff, who I've just gotten into the last few years, who does this cool thing where he listens to music throughout the year, does a tournament, people as fans vote. And he has a Patreon too, of course. And he's a huge like Jellyfish fan. He loves Kevin Gilbert, you know, but his tastes are everywhere. He does not rule out almost any style of music. As much as he loves power pop and loves his prog, he'll listen to death metal. He'll listen to Japanese music. He'll listen to ambient music. It's almost like too diverse for its own good in a way, because, you know, it's very much like of a schizophrenic kind of mentality to go from one style to the next and try to like think about each one and compare them. But it's got a very original channel, very original kind of style of, you know, he did like a blog before YouTube and everything. But anyway, let's see here. Going down the list, I'm almost done here. Atomic Abe is one I've just discovered in the last like year and a half. They make documentaries about like backdoor pilots of TV series. Like we watched this one last night on Webster. There was a backdoor pilot that never got picked up for the TV series Webster from the 80s. So given that I grew up in especially the 80s, maybe the 90s too, I knew a lot of those shows. I did not know that these shows were going to be pilots. And a lot of his like references, well, he'll talk about the cast and he'll say, you know, look who we have here, who later showed up on this show or this movie. Yeah, I like Atomic Abe. There's a whole like series of channels that are popping up like that. One of them is called Retro Renaissance. I think I have them on my list. One of them is called like Retro something. I forget. Anyway, Jams and Tea, which is like a podcast music channel, which they're a little bit along the lines of like Velocity Music, where they definitely have one foot in like the sort of like Warped Tour scene, and then one foot in like the kind of modern prog scene, one foot in like the classic rock scene. The only thing is there's one dude on that channel that whenever I watch, he's just looking to the side like this, like looks completely bored. Like he's not even like paying attention. But I don't know. I mean, I like them. I don't maybe follow them as much as I used to when I first checked them out, but I still check them out every so often. 365 Days of Prog, of course, Naomi, who did the monumental task of, hence her name, reviewed an album every day in the year 2022. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, her taste in prog and her age. She likes a lot of the old stuff, but some of the old stuff she doesn't care for at all. And then some of the new stuff she likes, and some of the new stuff she doesn't care for. Like she hated the Flower Kings, which is weird. But you know, you're not gonna like everything. Yeah, Naomi's great. She's been social. I've signed her wall and commented on a lot of her videos, and vice versa. Although I know she's been at school, and her videos have like couple of the last few videos she did, she had to spend days, months even. The one that was talking about every Roger Dean artwork cover. Jimmy High Roller, Basketball Dude, who I like his channel. I always make comments basically, finding A, B, C, and D that I don't agree with, though, because he seems to feel like he's the definitive voice on the NBA. While I like and respect his opinions, some stuff, I don't agree with him on LeBron, even though there are other people that agree with him. And like most of the comments are like, amazing video, you should be on ESPN and everything like that. But his videos are really well made, and he shows graphs and graphics and interlaces clips really well together. But I don't know if he probably has someone helping him out. He has like 6 million subscribers. Let's see, musically obsessed Chris Prof, who I probably associate most with showing vinyl related to the Monkees. He likes like his prog too, I believe. He's a Rush fan. But he has a huge knowledge and background with the Monkees and Nesmith. So naturally, I wanted to point this out to my wife, and my wife has found less criticism from him, but because he did like rankings and everything like that, but I still like him. Let's see here. I never did that Monkees contest for him. I need to do that. Well, it was really for my wife and not me. Nathan on Shuffle, of course, super active YouTuber in the prog community. As it turns out, he had a blog, I guess. I looked him up one day, and he had a blog on Blogger just like me, and I think he was also on the Mike Portnoy forum. I don't know what his name was, but chances are he either stumbled on there or one of the other forums that were related to Dream Theater. But yeah, he's done tons of great videos, lists. I really like his top 3 or 5, the 5 list. That's one of the best series he's done. And of course, his weekly news, you have to watch that because there's something you'll miss. Of course, I get in the habit of, saying, well, this is the other news that across my radar. But so I already talked about Weird History Food. Mary's Taste in Music, another female YouTuber who was into modern music and prog, but a lot of modern metal actually. But she likes her pop music, and her favorite musician is this guy named Owl City. Of course, people know from my home state. But yeah, and I think she's more active on TikTok. YouTube is like a secondary thing. She just goes on there like once every month or something like that. But and actually, if I start using TikTok, I'll probably see her more activity from her. Although I follow her on Instagram too, and I haven't seen her post recently in the last few months. But of course, the Prog Corner, he was streaming earlier. Shout out to Scott, the most central prog channel probably on YouTube in name. And now he's probably spawned off, at least a few dozen channels that are also in name for prog. But yeah, Scott's channel, the Sunday Prog streams, even before that with his lists, he was, the hardest working man in prog on YouTube, basically. But yeah, love Scott's channel. And I have to admit that some people have found my channel from him for sure. Matt O'Leary Music, who another local connection who happened to also have a connection with Notes Reviews. I didn't even realize, but I first met him at the Raina Kindo show back in 2018. But yeah, he lived a few miles from me. Then he moved the other side of the metro with his wife, and he just had, I don't know how many kids he's got, but I bond a lot with him on certain bands. I know his taste. He loves a lot of the stuff that Pitchfork talks about. And there's certain bands that I like that Pitchfork talks about that he doesn't like. It's just weird, but we have a love of many bands like Mew and the Raina Kindo, of course, the Deer Hunter. So yeah, Matt O'Leary's great. He's, of course, just like a few other people on this list, like Dean Wolf. He was, I think, initially doing his channel just for his own music, and he did an album a couple years ago. The Dodo, which, my cat ownership, which was something brand new to my wife and I back in 2020, when we took in the cat that we had to put down, Latte. They popped up right around that same time, and it's just like watching this sad story, this happy story about this cat or this dog. And it's addictive. I can't deny. And it's not even just on YouTube, because I would go to Instagram and they would show different stories on there. The Dodo is a staple. I hope the Dodo never goes away. Because back in the day, we used to watch like Dog Tales and Animal Rescue on local TV on Sunday mornings. That's kind of filled that void in some ways because we don't watch those anymore. So Neve, the Prog Nerd, of course, one of the she kind of reminds me of the second generation of like EQPTV and the Album Man, of this younger person who loves a lot of older music now. Obviously, the last couple of years, she's really and she's never got out of it, but she just decided to focus more on modern music and on metal, especially. But that's fine. I still like whatever she wants to talk about. I like her channel. I really did like her channel a lot. I watched it more religiously when it was with her dad, when she did the streams. She did a few streams with him, and then she did those videos with him, which she did once a week. Because I like Kira too, the Kira whatever from Down Under. that perspective of you have the parent and the child. I don't have that perspective. My parents were not music heads. So it's neat to see someone in that experience like, oh, yeah, now you'll like the Mars Volta. Now you'll like Humphreys McGee. Now you'll like Rush. Now you'll like the Grateful Dead. And her dad, I love her dad's taste in music. And they're on, her dad's actually on the Discord channel. So Sidetrek is a guy named Jay who posts a lot of sci-fi and entertainment news. Although a lot of his gossip, and he has quote unquote insiders. But he does post a lot of good gossip. He's very active. And I think he has a Patreon and like that. And he does group chats once in a while. But all the stuff about Babylon 5 and Battlestar Galactica and any stuff that's coming on the pipeline. What was it? Buffy the Vampire Slayer or Firefly reboots. He's on it almost faster than anyone. Whether his sources in the industry are always accurate, that's a different story. Because he had a thing he kind of went at with J. Michael Straczynski a few weeks ago. And I feel bad for him because he ended up deleting his Twitter account as a result. Rhyme Signatures, of course, guy from England who's been doing reviews the last couple of years, metal and prog and a lot of modern prog and stuff that, you know, he obviously people know him through Notes Reviews and a lot of those group chats, the Albums of the Year series they do. I know he shows up on the prog stream once in a while too on Sunday through Scott. But yeah, great reviewer. He just did a review of the new Dipper Robbins, of course. So he's going to talk about a lot of stuff that a lot of channels won't actually. Nick and Lex, who are a reaction channel who do react to a lot of stuff, including like they did a Kevin Gilbert reaction once. Like it seems like to be that pattern with reaction channels with couples or two people. So let's see, Death by Unicorn, of course, Brennan, who I did a couple of group chats with over the last 6 months. Love his channel, and he's very extensive in the amount of music he covers in rock and prog and metal, especially. But yeah, great channel. If you want to find stuff that you can't find on other channels, Brennan's channel is a very good source for it. And you know, this result, him and I can bond in that sense because we definitely like to champion the underdog and the small album, but not discount the big album because we did, you know, the collaborations about Coheed and Cambria and Muse who are unknown. Brockway Vinyl Bites, of course, Cody, who's been really popular the last like 3-4 months on the Prog Corners live stream and his channel. He's doing a Saturday stream as well. I really enjoy Cody's channel as well. You know, his retro prog stuff, and he likes his 80s metal and some recent metal, and he likes a lot of modern stuff as well. He has a freaking record store. I mean, the record store is unbelievable. Beer and Vinyl, who just joined the channel a little while ago, really like Alex's channel. You know, he just doesn't take anything too seriously and loves his, you know, between his prog and his old school stuff. Like he did the feature on the band Badfinger, you know. Yeah, I'm sure Alex and I, even though his taste and I aren't identical, he has a lot of similar taste to me. And so he's definitely a channel I've enjoyed watching. And along those same lines, Spin in Prog, Tara and her father, I can't remember her father's name. But yeah, another prog channel that's sort of, you know, promoting and blowing up the interest in prog on YouTube. And then Flickering Box is the last one I have on the list. Alexis and Birch, who are another reaction channel who do really just live streams, though. It's weird. They don't really do like recorded. And the thing is, they're not a couple because she's married to some other guy and she's like 30 years younger than him and he's about my age. But anyway, that's the long, extensive list of YouTube channels that. So I just want to do some shout outs to people that I have all known, musicians personally. Like, so here we go. Andy Fry from Margot and the Nuclear So-and-Sos. Bitsy from Disc Trails. I really miss them, and I know she developed that condition, so we'll never probably hear music from him. But I used to talk to her on Facebook a lot. Her and her husband, Jared. Brandon Peterson from Hotel the Laughing Tree. You know, he's been great. After I did the review, the early review of Tearing Everything After, he's like, him and AJ both got in touch with me, and they've sent me advanced copies of their last 2 records. Brent Knopp of Ramona Falls and Menomina, because I went going to see Ramona Falls a few times, and just how much I really appreciated and liked his songwriting. And I kind of developed a little bit of a relationship with him. He signed, of course, all my stuff. Brooke Wagner, saw her open for, it was Mute Math and solo, and then her with Timbre. I kind of developed a little bit of a relationship with her. She was like, she's not even a full-time musician anymore. Brian Scary in the last couple of years on Twitter, like last year, really, after getting really into Brian Scary, he's been very receptive. I talked about my favorite musician discovered last year and everything like that. He's very interactive, unlike some people on social media. Casey Crescenzo, I can't deny, even though he knows me, but, you know,
I saw him I've seen the Deer Hunter like a dozen times. So I ended up, I've talked to him a lot here and there. And the first time I actually saw them in 2007 where they were the opening band for 3 bands, Megan Dia, I forget the other 2 bands. I was talking about the Beatles and stuff like that. It's like, the kids that were all like the Warped Tour group, they're on that tour they're on. Probably aren't that, it's like, did you notice my Beatles reference? And just because I'm a lifetime member and I've seen them how many times, I've developed a little bit of a personal relationship with Casey, and he's one of my favorite songwriters of all time for sure. Christian Nesmith and Cirksey Link, maybe more so with Cirksey, but I was wearing my Kevin Gilbert shirt at a few shows, and Christian covered 2 Kevin Gilbert songs with his band, did videos on YouTube. But of course, Christian's the son of Mike Nesmith and played with the Monkees and everything like that. On live and everything, and played with the Nesmith shows, the Michael Nesmith live shows. And Cersei also did the vocals. And of course, they've done albums. They have an album coming out this year, actually. So I'll say Cliff and all the members of Fair to Midland, given that I've seen Fair to Midland, I saw Fair to Midland like 12 times. Again, they knew me. They saw me show up every time. And yeah, I mean, I would hang around and just shoot the shit with them and talk to them. And they was like, oh, Kyle's of course going to be there. We can always count on Kyle showing up at the show here because they played here so many times. Within a 5-year period, they came here a dozen times. Daniel Victor from Never Ending White Lights, of course, and I did a video on them and talked about them. He's responded a few different times online. He made a comment. It was George Michael or something else to me, and I admire the guy, even though making music obviously is nothing that's easy for him, because he's a perfectionist and he doesn't want to do it. He wants to do it his own way. And he had an accident where he lost a bunch of his music because he had flooding his apartment and everything like that. But yeah, Daniel Victor, I personally value any connection I've had with him. Dan Moxon and all the members of Ben Sinister, I say the same thing about. When I went to go see them, I got to have dinner with them and everything. Great guys. They've responded to almost anything I post on Twitter. So yeah, Daniel, I remember like my friend Josh interviewing them and everything. I've got to like hang out while they did the interview. Josh from Heavy DeBriefings, of course. Doug Ott and Ted Leonard from Enchant. I used to know them back in the day. They'd hang out in Mike Portnoy's chat room or some of the other chat rooms. And I saw them at Nearfest in 2002. Did some interviews for the radio station and everything like that. And I know Doug Ott was a big Kevin Gilbert fan, so that was part of it. And it was like Captain Jim Harrell's radio show he would hang out in the chat room for, and that was where I met him. But he's the guitarist from Enchant, of course. The guys from East of the Wall, the sort of post-metal band from New Jersey, who I went to this art gallery and saw them play and was having my apple and got to hang out with them. And I don't know if I actually like inspired the title of their album, The Apologist, because The Apologist was the title. I had made a criticism of the previous record being unlistenable on my blog. So we're apologizing to you, Kyle. So we're calling our album. So I hope you apologize. Hope the album is good enough for you to listen to now. But it turned out that's their best record. That's my favorite record of theirs. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I forget even the guys' names. Yeah, East of the Wall guys, I got to know somewhat well. Eric Cerna. Eric Cerna played with the Deer Hunter, and then he did his own solo stuff. And I remember him coming up to me one of the first few Deer Hunter shows, because the band had changed. He was one of the only member that was retained besides Casey for a little while there. But yeah, and his blues rock album is really good. Let's see, shout out to Erlen from Giant Sky just recently. He's been really cool about, me doing a review on the video and everything like that, and talking about it. And he made comments on my channel and everything, but yeah, Erlen from Giant Sky. Greg Massey from Maudlin of the Well also did the some Color of Air podcast. Yeah, I would chime in and, he would talk about the music industry, and he had a lot of guests like on his podcast. But yeah, I don't know how I was friends with him on Facebook. I haven't seen him post in a long time, but the members of Grimace, or maybe it was just their rep, who sent me all 4 of their albums on CD for nothing, which was just super nice and complimentary. The Grimace, the Romanian sort of pop alternative rock band. Gruno, shout out to him. Wayne Perez, who's best known for his work with Kevin Gilbert's estate. At one point, he actually asked if I wanted to buy a test pressing of the Thud vinyl. Unfortunately, I didn't commit to him, and then literally the next week he said, sorry, they're gone. But Gruno, yeah, I'm sure Gruno, even though he doesn't contact me that often, appreciates me talking about Kevin on YouTube and the blog as much as I can. James Bickers, the late James Bickers, of course, who I met at Prog Power USA in 2001, who inspired me to probably go on to doing the blogging and everything like that. Sort of mentality about, the way prog rock really is, it's not really any different than anything else, even though people think it is, and that conversation I had with him, although oddly enough, the last decade and change of his life, he really wasn't that involved. And even though he was writing for metal and prog magazines back in the 90s, he kind of went away from that and did radio talk show stuff. He talked about like indie rock, like Frightened Rabbit once. I followed him on Twitter, but then I learned of his passing like a year after it happened. It was right around my wedding. It was weird. Jeff Wagner, the author who wrote, of course, the Fates Warning book and the Mean Deviation book. He did a book on Peter Steele, which I never got. And he's doing a book on Voivod now. I've commented on Twitter, on Facebook with him, and of course his podcast Radical Research with Hunter Ginn. I did embarrass myself once when I made a comment how I thought that Griffin was Canterbury, and I was totally wrong about that. But Jeff Wagner champions a lot of stuff, and I'm sure he remembers me. He was on a couple of the channels doing on the YouTube channels talking about certain things. I don't know when the Fates Warning book came out or it was a little bit after that. Let's see. Jeff Zampillo of the Pneumatic Transit of Exotic and Peninsula, of course, Pneumatic Transit. He sent me the last couple of Pneumatic Transit albums for free to review, and and he reached out to me, and he likes a lot of the stuff I like on Instagram and Facebook and everything. Like, nice guy from Chicago, great musician, great composer, and just a cool person. Jimmy and Echo of ours for sure, especially the last few years. I mean, I got to go on stage and play drums with them. That's all you need to know, if nothing else. But the only thing that's kind of sucked is that the fangirls, especially the girls, crowd around the guy after the show, even though there's usually not thousands of people at a show. It's usually a few hundred. There's been many times I didn't get to talk to him, but I have talked to him several times. The first time I saw him, I got to talk to him. I remember asking about Genesis. I got a picture of myself wearing my Shame Me the Truth shirt. I'm doing the stupid metal sign. But yeah, he's like, yeah, I like Genesis, and he, even though his music isn't pure prog, he probably understands why someone who likes prog would like their music. And the fact Mike Portnoy talked about them, I don't know if he knows that. I also don't know. I've also thought there's a connection between him and Doug Pinnick. Because I swear to God, Doug Pinnick once talked about liking ours. But I can't find it anywhere. I need to ask Doug this. Let's see here. Joey and the member. Okay, yeah. So Joey and the members of Rain to Kindle, of course, recently doing the town halls and stuff, getting to know him more, and got to talk to them after a couple of the shows. They're great guys. For them, I mean, bring up everything that he's not really into vaccines and stuff like that. But so what? He's just I'm on the Patreon and everything for a reason. I think the Rain to Kindle is a fantastic band that could become a lot more popular and more successful than they are, but without compromise. I don't know. Joey Eppert of 3. Another great band, and of all things I got to do with 3, I did get to go to with Josh Runquist, go see him play in front of his grandfather's 80th birthday in Rochester, Minnesota, and got to hang out, got free dinner and everything like that. Got to really know him a little more, and we were bonded. He loves Kiss Kiss, the band Kiss Kiss, and he really admired Josh Banash. He wanted to actually work with Josh at some point. I don't know if it will ever happen, but you'd hope so. And I could actually mention Josh in that same lines, because Josh has been great about contacting me. If he has a new album out, here you go. You can review it. Because I was supporting and really championing Josh Banash when Kiss Kiss popped up in 2007. That was one of the first things I wrote on the All Media Reviews blog, actually, the review of their new album. And then his stuff with Vuvuzela and everything like that, and his solo stuff. And he's got whatever Third Star, I forget the name of the new project, the new psychedelic project he's doing. I don't know if we're going to get a full-length album from them soon. Let's see, getting through this. Jordan Blum, who I mentioned earlier, and hold on a second. I know what happened. Jordan Blum, who's a really talented writer of all things music. I don't know if he does movies too, but prog and metal and modern rock and classic rock. I mean, a lot of prog, of course, but yeah, I mean, he's a chameleon. He'll be on 20 different media outlets from teeny to huge. And I've always kind of considered myself sort of someone who I admire and appreciate any success and all success he ever has. And I'm thankful I know him. Josh Ralt, from now known for Shell Pink, but before that Mercies, and originally I got to know him through he was a member of the touring band, The Deer Hunter. Yeah, he also was a guitar tech for Kimber at one point, and I saw him at that. It's like, I was like, what are you doing here, Josh? It's like, well, this is what I do to pay my bills. But I really love that Shell Pink EP is really good from last year. I love a lot of the Mercy stuff he's done too. But yeah, and I really like the fact he's reached out and stayed connected. I would say, let's see here. Yeah, the Caddisfly, all the members of Caddisfly. Talk about Dan Fury, Vinyl Fury, also the members of Caddisfly. I got to have dinner with them the first time I saw them live, and they didn't blow up to the degree we thought. I wasn't alone in this, but they did get slightly popular, and it was great that they still were connecting to the fans. And I miss those guys, even though I didn't spend tons of time. I saw them live like 4 times, but it was always like an event to see them. Although there was one time I saw them, I went to go see them, and then I had to scoot because Mew was playing that the same night down at the Fine Line, and I didn't get to hang out with them. I was kind of sad about that. I actually asked them because they were Mew fans, like, you guys want to go to the show? It was the same night. They could have done double bill. That would have been better. Catherine Paul from originally Forest Park, then Genders and Black Belt Eagle Scout. Really good, like, singer, drummer, and guitarist, songwriter, composer. I love her style of sort of post-rock and, ambient, atmospheric, dreamy music. And she's been very approachable online and in person at all the times I saw her live. We're Warpaint. We both love the band Warpaint. She totally is inspired by and influenced by Warpaint. Liam, Laura, and members of Family Crest to some small degree. I've never spent tons of time with them, but every show I talk to them for a few minutes, and they kind of know me since myself and my friend Nate usually try to see them. I've seen them like 6 times. Local natives, all the members, because when they were Call Out Rest, I knew them. And, although I haven't seen all their shows the last like 8 years, but, given the fact I was one of like 5 fans at their first couple of shows, they don't forget that. Lorenzo from Alt Prog Core, another like total contemporary of mine who launched his blog literally like a year after mine. And he has a YouTube channel, but he just does like his own covers. And he's obviously a massive Kevin Gilbert fan. He wrote the book, that biography on Kevin Gilbert in Italian, then got translated this past year. But yeah, he's definitely a contemporary and someone who I look to and I've discovered. I don't know if I would know about Fiacre if it wasn't for him, among others. But then again, I introduced him to the Velocities. So it's like, scratch my back, I scratch your back, that kind of thing. Lucy Jordash from Marillion. Well, she knows hundreds, thousands of fans. I know I chime in on social media here and there, and she kind of remembers me. And I got that picture from 2005 with her when I was in Chicago at the Los Marillos Trios show. But yeah, I've always sort of felt like I had a connection to Lucy to some degree, even though, again, she has thousands of them because she's their manager and she's married to Ian, the drummer. Matt Page from During the Electric Sleep. Whenever I talk about them or pass news along, he's like really thankful and leaves a message. And I'm really thankful. I'm glad I know Matt, and they're not that big, of course, but they still get lots of comments. He doesn't have to do it for all of them, and he does. Mike Venart, who I did the review, one of my most viewed videos was the review of the Venart debut album. What's called The Joker, not The Joker, The Demon Joke. But I think he saw that, and I've commented and chimed in, and then I did meet him. It was like 2018, whenever it was, when he was playing with 50 Clyro in St. Paul here. So that was just like a huge deal to finally meet him in person after being a fan of Oceansize and his for over a decade. But yeah, and then his like wife emailed me buying merch from him and everything, and she's been really nice. Unfortunately, I lost the hat, the winter beanie. My friend Niche, who just like Lorenzo from Alt Prog Core, or even Jordan Blum to some degree, is into a lot of the sort of modern prog stuff and done a lot of stuff with media. She's not their manager, but she was the biggest 3 fan for the longest time. She's also a massive Coheed and Cambria fan. Her taste and the stuff she talks about goes throughout, the boundaries of modern stuff. She loves her punk and her post-punk and her, hardcore music, besides liking some prog and alternative rock. I don't know how much older stuff she's really that into. I mean, sure, she's into some of it, but she's done podcasts. I don't know if she kept a blog, but I've known her going back to the MySpace days. I've known her that long, and she just, like me, she's trying the little guy. She's probably done radio too. The little guy, trying to support the little guy, and she saw Coheed and Cambria get massive. So, unlike myself, much to her credit, Nishita, she's like really seen the fruit of her labors have success. But I'm still glad that I'm a friend with her and I can talk to her. You know, she's the one who talked about Code 7 coming back. I would not have known about that if she hadn't mentioned it within the last 6 months. Neil DeGrade from Dirt Poor Robins, of course, you know, I've talked about them and he's frequently reached out. He's referenced my blog and the YouTube channel a few times and left comments. Really love my relationship with Neil. Nick Crescenzo, just like Casey, he even made me employed as part of the Deer Hunter, but on Facebook, which wasn't really true, but he just decided to do it. I don't know. He just like tagged me. It says you work for us now. But yeah, I mean, you know, when some of the other members like him and like the bass player Nick, which I can't remember his last name, when Casey's not available, he's been very approachable. Nick Lambert, who connected to the Deer Hunter way because he was with Falling Up, the latter Falling Up albums and his project Northern Abbey, but also, of course, because Falling Up is Jesse Raborti's project. Jesse Raborti played with Casey in the River Empires. So, and, you know, Northern Abbey's project, which was released like 3 EPs or 4 EPs, reminds me a decent amount of the River Empire stuff. The more stripped down, but, you know, but yeah, he actually said, you should interview Jesse. And I would never have interviewed Jesse if it wasn't for him. And, you know, I still follow him on Instagram and everything like that and Facebook. Omar Ghaznavi from Mask of the Phantasm, you know, having just to talk to him, saying I really like the album, did this review, want to buy the vinyl, when's the vinyl coming? He was very good about telling me, he told me some personal stuff that I'm not going to share, but, you know, I at least feel like I've developed a little bit of a personal relationship with him, you know, and I love the Mask of the Phantasm. They're probably going to have another album coming out, but, you know, it's great that I actually have a little bit of history and know him. Rob Volpentesta, Rob Thorne, and Todd Rose, especially from the band Soundscape, who that goes back to the late 90s, early 2000s when I was buying all their catalog and it's like their number one fan. But yeah, I have a soft spot and a huge amount of nostalgia connection to Rob and Todd and the Soundscape family. I'm not as into Sacred Oath, I'll admit that, even though Sacred Oath had infinitely more success. But Sarah Perbix from Cloud Cult, I took piano lessons from her. She's the piano player and she plays French horn and trumpet with Cloud Cult. I always feel like very, very happy, very, very thankful that I know her. Whenever I see Cloud Cult, I think of, oh, that's my friend Sarah up there. Even though she's not the main songwriter. I mean, they kind of collectively, but, you know, of course, Craig Minowa does a lot of the songwriting with them. Sandra Skolivol, who from Moron Police, and of course, Major Parkinson. I know him through some of the message boards too. I guess I would also put on Nick from the Magic Man from Demians on the same kind of mentality, that someone I knew through the message board that had a band that I really liked. But yeah, Sandra's great. And his taste, like he loves Tokyo and he loves Team Me. There's certain bands that like, I feel like him and I are the only people on the planet that like that champion. But yeah, and he's a great musician and singer and songwriter. You know, he's in Major Parkinson and, you know, basically the one of the founders of Moron Police. Timbre, the harpist, who I know kind of associated with Brooke Wagner, but of course she released this epic record in 2015, Sun and Moon. Yeah, I saw her like 4 times live. I got to just hang out with her a couple of different times, supporting her, you know, just personal stuff that I see her talk about struggles that she's had. But she's a fantastic harp player, but she's even a better person. She's from Tennessee. I mean, I remember she came and she was going to Mickey's Diner, the famous sort of burger place, burger house. It's like, hey, you're in my neighborhood, go to Mickey's. Because she's from Tennessee, which Tennessee isn't that far from here. But anyway, Timbre Serpke is her real name. Timmy Sean, the musician, the singer-songwriter, who released my record from 2010, the Noise Water record, which I love. And one of the only connections with my wife, who my wife almost equally loves Timmy Sean because of influence of like Hall & Oates. But yeah, I mean, every time I post something, he likes it, and he notices it. And I know that Dr. Spin, Jeff, actually interviewed him. They were kind of downplaying Dream Theater, down talking Dream Theater a little bit, which, you know, everyone's got their own take on it. But it was interesting to think of 2 people talking about a band that I don't associate them with. But I know that Jeff knows Dream Theater though. But it was interesting to hear Timmy talk about Dream Theater. I wonder what Portnoy would think of his music though. Both, you know, there's Sir Video and then his solo music. Then he has the band called Loser. Tomer Pink from Subterranean Masquerade. Of course, they're from Israel. I kept on bugging him about that follow-up album for years, and I bought like the advanced. I got like a promo of their first the follow-up, the comeback single, and yeah, I mean, I've always appreciated Tomer, you know, and if I made comments, he frequently has noticed. He was friends with me on MySpace for all I know. And then the members of Warpaint, who I saw many times, you know, just kind of bonding with them. And anyway, I think I'm gonna end the stream for now. I'll probably do a video about the rest of this stuff, because that's an hour and a half of talking. But yeah, it's been a great 10 years, I guess. And again, the future of what I'm going to try to finish up these projects. And, you know, I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm really thinking of trying to do like the documentary stuff for my YouTube channel. That might be it. I don't know. Depends on the random reviews thing that Alex kind of is getting me the idea to do, are what I'm thinking maybe like the longer term future of the channel, depending on after I get the albums of the year done and then do the movies list. I don't know. I'm not sure, but because I don't know if 10 years from now I'm gonna be sitting here looking back from 2024 to 2034 thinking I did the same stuff, just based on the success of the amount of success of the channel. I don't know. But and the live streams things may be a limited thing too. I don't know. I might do this again when I have the time. Now that I'm sort of doing it a little more and getting a little bit better used to it. But thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time.